Screen Time Stories is presented by Pinwheel. Pinwheel gives kids and teens a smartphone experience that actually supports healthy development. I'm Julie, and as a parent, I know that embracing technology today is a must. Our kids will log on whether we like it or not. So let's lean into the challenges and joys of parenting with tech by learning from the latest research and experts in the field. This is Screen Time Stories, parenting techniques for raising tech natives. Let's figure this out together. Today, we're starting a two-part series on educating our children about pornography. I'm breaking it into two parts so that we can focus on younger kids and the introductory phase today, and we'll gear next week's episode toward older kids. To help me get a better understanding of this, I'm talking to Kristen Jenson, the founder of Defend Young Minds and #1 best-selling author of the book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Kristen has spoken at international conferences like the United Nations Civil Societies Conference and the National Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation Global Summit. Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for the work that you do for the children in our community. What got you into this field, writing these books?
That is a great question that I get all the time. And to be honest, it never was part of my life dream. But what happened was I got a call one evening from a new friend, and she was a mother of a large family. Her 17-year-old son, they found that he had been sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters from the 14-year-old down to the 4-year-old, and pornography was involved. So after she told me this very sad story and all of the subsequent things that happened, I woke up the next morning and I had this thought just kind of beating in my mind, like, who's going to warn the young children? Because I could tell they were getting into pornography and also being prematurely sexualized. So I thought, well, there must be a book because I just feel like there is a book for everything, right? Or several. And I went and looked and I couldn't find anything like that you could read to a child, right? To explain the problems of pornography and all the reasons to avoid it. So once I couldn't find it, I started to do some more research, and I had this crazy idea that I could write this book. I do have a degree in English, but I've never written a children's book before. So I got started and had a lot of help from a lot of people and a lot of feedback from parents, which really was the most helpful. And that's how Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids, which is a read-aloud book for ages 7 to 11. That was how that book came about.
Okay. And you have another one. You have a few, actually, but there's another one that we're going to talk about today. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. What are the differences between those books, and how did Junior come about?
Well, Junior came about totally because parents asked for it. And when I wrote my first book, I thought 7 was a pretty good age to start this conversation. But after I had several parents come to me, both moms and dads, asking for a book for younger kids, I looked around and I saw so many 3-year-olds on iPads. Mm-hmm. And I heard lots of stories now, and 5-year-olds on the school bus getting exposed to pornography from other kids, and on and on. So I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, a simple plan to protect young minds. And it is a much simplified book. But the things that they have in common are the 3 purposes. So 1, to give kids a definition of pornography or bad pictures. And 2, to teach them, to warn them that it's dangerous for their growing minds. This kind of material is harmful. And 3, to give them a plan so they know what to do when they're exposed, because we really can't control that. We can only have our influence and control in helping our children know what to do when they see it. So a definition, a warning, and a plan. And both books provide that for children so that they're much better prepared. So be prepared, not scared, right?
Be prepared, not scared. I like that. And I like that you mentioned the lack of control that parents have, because that's something that I keep coming back to. The more people I speak to about a variety of different parenting issues, it seems like that sense of control is just harmful, because it's an illusion. We can really only control our kids to a very small extent. And beyond that, if we think that we have more control than we actually do, we're not doing our kids any favors. We're doing them a disservice by not preparing them for all the things that they face when they're not under our thumb, right?
Right.
So I appreciate that you're hearing from parents and picking up on what's needed in society. I'm horrified that you mentioned 3-year-olds, but I hear you. I see it all the time too, the iPads, and it's so easy to click the wrong thing. So if I wanted to get my kid one of these books, what does that look like when I'm sitting down on the couch with my child pulling this out? How do I begin this conversation?
Well, I guess that's what the book is for, is to help you, because it's to start that conversation. Books are great because they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And kids are very used to being read books. And so it's just a natural experience. And if you look at the thousands of reviews I have on Amazon for these books, you'll see that one of the things that parents say the most is that how comfortable it was.
Okay.
And so kids, and also, in their minds, they don't have this big, ugly context of pornography. We may know more about it and think and we have thoughts about it, but the kids are just like a clean slate in essence. So they're not as uncomfortable as we are.
It's a very
just like, oh, this is just another thing mom's warning me about. She's warned me about other things.
Well, and it's just another story time. We're going to snuggle and pull out a story just like we always do at this time of night. And this time it's something that makes me very uncomfortable, but they don't know enough to feel uncomfortable yet. So we just pull out the book like a normal story time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the earlier, the younger, the easier it is.
Now, what do you mean by younger? Can you give us some age range?
So like a 3-year-old is going to be a lot easier to start this conversation with than a 13-year-old. 13-year-old may already have a bit of experience with pornography that you don't even know about. So that might be a little more awkward. Not that you shouldn't start, but it's just going to be so much easier when you start with a 3-year-old having these little conversations than a 13-year-old. Plus, when you start young, you have a better chance of getting in there early before pornography becomes, before they see pornography. In other words, you have that first opportunity to be proactive and give them a plan so they're not caught off guard. Because I don't know about you, Julie, but when I'm caught off guard, I don't do very well. And when I have a plan in place and I kind of know what I might run into, then I know how to react, then I do much better. And kids are no different. So I think that just open the book. I heard one story where a mom got the book in the mail, she ordered it off Amazon, I guess, and she opened it, just didn't have time to read it right then, but put it down on her coffee table. And her 6-year-old son came through. I guess he was a pretty good reader because he read the book. And then he came into the kitchen where she was, and he was holding, he goes, "This is a good book."
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
that was a great story. But I have heard so many accounts like this. Totally, I did not expect. But I've heard several parents tell me that Good Pictures, Bad Pictures is their kid's favorite book.
Okay, wow. That's amazing.
I thought that was kind of weird, actually. But this is, and I puzzled about that, to be honest. I mean, I'm flattered, but I thought about it because I feel like these books are very empowering for kids. And they treat children with such respect that, I know you can handle this, and I'm going to give you the truth, and I'm going to empower you with knowledge, and I'm not going to be ashamed to talk about this. I'm going to actually prepare you for the world you are living in now. Children feel good when they're trusted. And when they're trusted with this important information, I just think it even improves their self-esteem and it improves your relationship with them.
I think it's very cool because I feel like that's how we want to be communicated with as adults. But you're just taking this to an age appropriate level. So it makes total sense. It's the golden rule. This is how we want to be treated. So I love that. Okay. So probably like 3 years old for this good pictures, bad pictures junior could be good stuff.
Yeah,
and then just leveling up the kids as they grow older, introducing the books with more content that supports that age, that stage in their lives.
Absolutely. I've read it to my 2-year-old grandson. So
okay. Well, what about this like curiosity factor? If I introduce my kid to, so if I pull out Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and this is my child's first introduction to bad pictures, am I increasing their curiosity? Is this a negative thing? Is there any possibility that they're going to be searching out more?
So that's a really good question. And I understand it. And as people ask that question, I can just feel the mom guilt pretty much boiling up because, at least for me as a mother, I would feel guilty over anything possible, and still do a little bit. But this is the thing. You have two choices. One choice is to cross your fingers and hope that your kid doesn't get exposed to pornography until the day, after you decide to talk to them about it, or the week, right? And you can cross your fingers or even just cross your fingers and just pretend that it doesn't exist, right? Just, I don't want to deal with it. Well, that's the plan that most parents have been using for a long time. And guess what? It just has not been working. So many kids getting exposed, not knowing what to do, certainly not going to their parents and telling them because they think they're going to get into trouble. Whatever, there's a lot that withholds a child from speaking up to their parents, especially if their parents have not opened this conversation. So the way I look at it and believe to be more helpful is to do things with intention and to be proactive. So you warn your child about, for example, when your child gets to that age where they're running around, you teach them not to run into the street because there are cars and cars could hit you and you could be hurt. And so you have to stop at the curb and, you train them. Well, when kids get any device that gets them on the internet superhighway, they also need to be trained. They also need to be warned. I think it's irresponsible to not warn children about these dangers. So, you can take that from me. Now, do kids get curious? Yes. And isn't it better because our world is shooting little arrows of sexual cues at them all the time. We've shut some of those out, but they're there. They're in music, they're in the grocery store, on the magazines, they're in every social media feed, they're everywhere. So all of these cues coming in, and then the kids also hear things. They hear certain terms at school. They know there's something that adults do or know, and they need to figure this out. So along with that, we need to talk to them about sex earlier. Really, we need
the curiosity, the things that are compelling the curiosity exist, whether I bring up the conversation or not.
Right. You're not going to make it worse.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say, I love it that you used the term mom guilt, because I love breaking down that concept. I think anytime we can look that in the face and call it out is really empowering for me, because it's something that happens without my noticing that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to be able to look mom guilt in the face and, label it for what it is, and to be able to move on, is just, it feels great, and it makes me a better parent. But, in that same vein, when a kid, notice I didn't say if, when a kid comes across porn for the first time, it's not just the kid that's having a moment. When the parent finds out that this has occurred, there's a huge sense of shame involved. There's this, major societal stigma where we feel like we did something wrong when our kid, clicks the wrong link or whatever happened for them to be able to access porn. What do you say to these parents who either are facing it right now, maybe it just happened yesterday, or, if kids are a bit younger, they haven't discovered it yet. What do you say to parents to try to break down that stigma?
Yeah. Well, I totally understand it. And it is a thing. So I'm not going to shame any moms out there for having mom guilt, but I'm going to try to give you a few ideas maybe that you can think about. Well, first of all, we do have an article called Mom Guilt, 8 Tips to Overcome Shame When Your Child Sees Porn. And that is on defendyoungminds.com. So you can look for that, written by Barb Winters, who I believe has a coaching practice with parents, that are having these issues. So she speaks from a lot of personal experience, and she gives some great advice. I will also say that if you feel guilty that your kid saw porn, and you've done everything you can really to, you've got the parental controls, you've got the filters. But the thing is even if you can lock down everything in your home, the minute they walk out the door, and everybody has a portal to porn in their pocket, right? So I think you mentioned this earlier, you can't have this, you can't assume that you have control, right? You don't have control. And if you don't have control, then you don't have total responsibility either. Your main responsibility is to prepare your child for how to react and how to protect themselves when they see it. You cannot control the world. You cannot control everybody that comes in contact with your child. And I have heard from moms that were so upset. I mean, to the point of extreme feelings. And I just want all the moms out there listening, and dads too, to know that this is happening all over. If you look down your street or your apartment building or wherever, you should know that this is happening to other children, and it's not your fault. But you can have an influence, and you can help your child to build an internal filter so that when they see these things, they know exactly what it is. They know that it's harmful, and they know what to do. And they have you as an ally to help them. Mm-hmm. That is huge in a child's life.
I love the part about having an ally, especially because we've been through it all. We have such a better understanding of what's going on in the world. For my child to be able to confide in me and feel like there's that openness, that we can have a conversation about something that's very awkward. And, you know, maybe because that conversation door is open, it's less awkward for my child. Maybe not awkward at all.
I think so.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. That would be cool.
Like, I think every kid is different. But I'll tell you a story. There was a mom named Sue, and she was very protective. She practically did a background check on your family if you wanted your kid to play with her kids. And a new family moved in onto the street, and she hadn't been able to, really check them out yet. But this little kid came over, wanted to play with her son. I think he was like 7. And they were just going to go grab a bike from his house and go bike riding around the cul-de-sac. And she's like, oh, that's fine. What could happen? Mm-hmm. So he goes down to the house with his friend, but they decide to go inside for some reason, maybe get a drink of water, who knows, tell them where they'd be, whatever. So he went inside, and his older brothers, the friend's older brothers, were there looking at pornography. Mm-hmm. And said, hey, come over. I want to show you something. And show these little kids.
Do you know how old they were?
The younger kids were 7.
Yeah. Okay.
Around that age. And so he came back. Mm-hmm. He knew exactly what it was. He knew what was happening. He knew he shouldn't be looking. He went back and he told his mom. Mm-hmm. And his mom said, even though, she hated that it happened, she said it was beautiful in a sense because their plan, all went according to plan. And then they could sit there and snuggle, and she could talk to him, and he could tell her, what he thought and felt, and they could work on it together. Mm-hmm. And kind of debrief, and I think that is such, and she said it was a beautiful thing. And she said it increased the trust that they had with each other. So I've heard so many parents say the same thing, that I believe it's true. So it may seem hard at the beginning, but as with everything, it gets easier. Yeah. After you get started, and your kids deserve this. No kid deserves to face the porn industry alone. They need to have adults that love them and that will help them through it.
Well, you raise an interesting point with this little boy, coming across porn on what seems like a very innocent bike ride excursion. Because, going back to that control feature, I think a lot of us parents feel like we've got our technology locked down pretty well. Maybe we have passwords on tablets and TVs and filters on special routers and all these things to try to prevent it. But the neighbor next door might have older brothers. Right. I mean, so where, from what you've seen, how are most kids getting their first exposure to porn?
Through smartphones of other kids.
Okay. Like on the bus, hanging out
At school,
at school,
at church, at a
it's
church
happening
meeting,
at school and church.
everywhere. Yes, everywhere.
So
Everywhere there's a kid with a smartphone that has untethered access to the internet. Kids love to share new things with each other. I mean, it's just the thing that kids do. They're not terrible kids. They're not bad kids. They're just kids. And we as adults to give unfettered access to, that's where the big problem is. And there's a problem with, big tech as well. So there's a lot of solutions that need to come in to play here. But I think kids showing kids is the biggest part. And I think it's happening on smartphones. It's happening in games though, as well. Video games. There are links that go to pornography that people put up there. So, it's just so many ways that kids can. I mean, porn is looking for them. Mm-hmm. They don't even need so many kids. The majority of kids that see pornography are not looking for it.
Yeah.
It's looking for them.
Yeah. And yet, I really appreciate you saying that the kids that are, holding the unfettered smartphone are not bad kids. I appreciate that so much because I think that kids are curious little humans and they probably came across something possibly for the first time and they think it's weird and they want to get feedback from their best friends, look at what I found. This is weird. And so I appreciate you not putting those kids in the box of, bad child. Don't play with that kid anymore.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
I would be very careful because that's another reason a kid doesn't want to come and tell you that, their friend show them pornography. They don't want you to say, oh no, you'll never play with that kid again. Then they're going to lose a relationship. And that's pretty tough. So we got to be careful. We have a guide called My Kid Saw Porn, Now What? On our website. And it's, I think, 88 pages, but it goes through all the questions. It starts with a plan, a 5-step SMART plan. That will kind of give you the beginning, like, here's what you do. If you find out that your kid is seeing porn, S is stay calm, M is make a plan. And we tell you the questions that you should be asking and how to do it, right? You don't want an interrogation, right? We don't want an inquisition here. But drip, 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 and how you do it. And, we have a lot of articles in that guide about from therapists, answering many, many questions we've received over the years from parents. So this is just a highly curated guide to help parents through this. So I would definitely check that out. I don't know of anything quite like it anywhere else.
I'll link that in the show notes because I think that so many parents would find that helpful. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to have a completely separate episode speaking to parents of older kiddos, but just to give us a little bit of insight on, the long term here. I'm curious about just the harm in general, short term, long-term harm that porn can cause. And also how our conversation changes with kids as they grow throughout the years.
Yeah. I actually did a presentation not too long ago where it was like age by age recommendations for the concepts and the things that they need to know and the skills they need to have as they get older. But so young children, they just need a simple definition of pornography or bad pictures, and just a simple definition. Kids are black and white, right? They don't get nuance. And parents want to have nuanced conversations. Well, you can do that maybe with a 12, 13, 14-year-old, but younger children just don't have the cognitive abilities. They're just not there developmentally. So simple definitions. As they get older, I think you can begin teaching them more about the harms of pornography, and you need to, because kids need to have lots and lots of good, like, arguments, reasons why they should reject pornography. So if I were to list, there's a ton of reasons why porn harms kids. First of all, pornography, especially some of the more violent pornography, which is very common now. And I was just talking with a therapist the other day, and she said that they have similar trauma as children who are physically molested.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
So yeah, I was, in fact, yesterday. So the other thing that they're finding is that, well, then it sexualizes children, and children are very imitative. We all know that. We see them imitating us and others. So some children go on to offend other children, and they're not bad kids. Unfortunately, they've been hurt by bad material, by bad content, by things they shouldn't be seeing, that their brain isn't ready to see and be able to, like, make any sense out of. So some of these kids, and I, again, was talking with a therapist, and she all she does is counsel kids that have been sexually abused. And she says, and it's all child on child now. It's all child on child, an older brother or sister, and it's often siblings. Wow. So I am absolutely sure, and I know that there's going to be more and more studies that show this, that porn is the biggest sexual predator and perpetrator on children that we have now. Porn perpetrates on children, and then they act out on other children. And this is a huge problem. It's skyrocketing, and it's very harmful. I was actually going to a symposium that Defend Young Minds was helping to sponsor. I was on the plane talking to the gentleman next to me who was a pilot. He did, like, private jets, and got talking and ended up telling him what I was going to talk about at this conference, this symposium. And he just got really serious, and he just very quietly whispered, he said, well, that happened to me. And he says, I'm in my 30s and I'm still not over it. So, pornography just is so harmful. So there's that, and there's just the wrong concepts, the toxic concepts about sex that kids get. I mean, this is so violent, so objectifying, so just awful. I'm trying to think of all the awful words I can describe. And when they see, especially women, being treated the way they're treated in pornography, what does that do to a little girl who's watching that, right? What does that do to a little boy who's watching that? How is that setting them up for a happy marriage or a happy relationship? So there's all kinds of really, really good reasons for why we want to prepare our kids to reject pornography from a young age, and do everything we can to set them up with good arguments as they grow up. As they get older, we can also talk about how pornography fuels sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. So that when you're clicking on a site, you're kind of voting for sex trafficking. Yeah. Because it's all about, and I think kids, as they get older, they can understand about how the pornography industry works. and how it's all based on ad revenue through these tube sites. So they don't care really what age you are. I think they want eyeballs, they want clicks, and then that drives up their ad revenue. They don't care about the child. They don't care about their people. They just about their customers. They just want to use them for making more and more billions of dollars. Yeah. So, yeah, so many good reasons to help our children, again, develop an internal filter so that they can not only keep their brain safe from addiction, which can happen to younger children, but also to keep themselves safe from physical, sexual harm. Kids that are warned about pornography are safer from sexual abuse because pornography is used to groom children, not only by older kids, but by adults. So there was a family that told me they went over to a friend's house for dinner. And because of some remodeling, all of the kids' toys were down in the basement. And they were allowed to run downstairs, get a toy, and bring it back up. Well, this little 6-year-old boy ran down the stairs, and there was a man there. And he said, "Hey, come here. I want to show you something." Picked up a smartphone and showed him gay porn. And this little boy recognized that these were pictures of private parts. He knew what it was. His mom had read him good pictures, bad pictures. He ran up the stairs. And I think that was the end of that dinner party. But, this man was renting the basement apartment. Now, what would have happened if that little boy didn't recognize what was going on? If he'd been caught unaware, he was basically being groomed. This man was trying to groom him, hoping that this little boy would be there multiple times and that, he could do this. But that little boy was safe.
Yeah.
Saved himself, really. Yeah, he was prepared. And this isn't the only story I've heard of this. I've had people come up and tell me that reading good pictures, bad pictures saved other children from sexual abuse. So I didn't think of that when I was writing the book, but that is like one of the unintended consequences, a good consequence.
Right.
And I've since studied that. And I do give a presentation about how preparing children to reject pornography keeps them safer from sexual abuse, physical, hands-on sexual abuse. So there's just no downside to this, to talking to your children about pornography at an early age when you can really make a difference and have an influence. I just don't see a downside. What I see is a downside is just remaining silent and letting the kid deal with it on their own. Sure, kids are curious, but it's much better that they've been warned and they know and they have knowledge. So if they can have you right there next to them, talking to them, and I just know that that's going to have a better outcome than just keeping quiet, which is what we've been doing, and it's not working.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
We can do better. We can do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Another mom told me that she pulled up to pick up her kids from a play date and saw their little friend showing her girls something on a smartphone. And this was before she was even worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when they got in the car, she asked her daughters, "What was she showing you on her phone?" And they said, they looked at each other and said, "Oh, it was a My Little Pony video." But a few months later, she read them good pictures, bad pictures, and they opened up and they said, "Mom, it wasn't a My Little Pony video. It was pornography she was showing us." And this mom said, they lied to me because they simply didn't have the vocabulary.
Yeah.
They did not know how, and they felt so ashamed themselves, like they knew it wasn't good. So let's just give our kids the tools they need to thrive in the digital age. And they're going to be able to reap the benefits of all the good things and be more or less defended in a sense. They'll have a defense against these other more toxic influences that they will run into.
Yeah.
So
they will run into.
They will. Unfortunately, I hate thinking about this. Like I have 2 grandsons now. They're young. The thought of them seeing some of the things that I know exist out there. Honestly, just
but like
it brings it home.
We don't have any, control on this higher level when it comes to legislation and, ways to help our children keep their innocence while they're toddlers. It's ridiculous, but no, it seems like at this point in time, this is our best bet, is to just, prepare them for what we know will happen.
Right. And Julie, we love innocence. That sounds like a wonderful thing. And I felt like I enjoyed a certain amount of innocence as a child from certain things. I mean, my parents were divorced when I was a young age, so certainly I lost some innocence there, but innocence is not the goal. Okay. What is the goal? The goal is that child knows how to choose what is healthy and what is right and what is good, and let those things into their brains and keep the rest out. And that is the better thing. Yes, we'd love all of our kids to be innocent until they're a certain age, but they're going to be able to protect their own innocence, maintain their own innocence far better if they have this age-appropriate warning than if they get totally blindsided. So I just encourage all the parents out there, whether you use good pictures, bad pictures or not, join us at Defend Young Minds, join us on our Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and come and see what we have on our website, subscribe to our newsletter. And, we'll just give you step-by-step, really good information, keep you current. You were talking about how it's so hard with the technology. We totally get that. We have a whole section of articles called Tackle the Tech. And those are the hardest ones because they're not, as we say, evergreen. You have to keep updating them or just retiring them, then putting up the next one. But we know that parents want this information. So again, find us at defendyoungminds.com, and we want to walk this walk with you. We want to be helpful.
Well, just like I'm sure our kids appreciate our support as parents, I feel so appreciative to you and your organization that I have, you did all the legwork for me, putting together these books and articles and resources and guides. I just thank you so much for existing and, let alone coming on the show today. I'm, so grateful for your time, but just thank you. Thank you for what you do on a daily basis. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Julie. I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate all the parents out there. This is the toughest time to parent ever. And we just want to support parents, give them the right information and the tools that will just make their jobs more easy and more effective and just better, just happier. That's what I want. I just want everyone to be happier. Porn destroys happiness, so let's get rid of porn. But until we can do that, now I'm not saying to ban all porn. I'm just saying that children need to not see porn, but until we can protect them from it, they need to have a defense.
I agree, Kristen. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. What are your challenges with parenting with tech? I know that you've got them, so email me at julie@pinwheel.com and I'll help you address your concerns with expert advice.